God, me and my big mouth, just a couple of weeks ago, I was saying we finally had good Doctor Who, and it couldn't last. It couldn't last. After a genuinely strong and thought-provoking opening couple of episodes with Homo Aqua and Plastic Apocalypse, I think that the descent of the war between the land and the sea, for all intents and purposes, it's pretty gradual. The third episode, The Deep, where Barclay goes with a group of other individuals, they go down to the deepest point on Earth in order to have this diplomatic meeting, this diplomatic mission with Homo Aqua. And there's the really uncomfortable scene where Barclay and Salt get separated and they have a little bit of chemistry with each other. And it all starts kind of descending from there. And what we have is one of the characters who goes down to this underwater meeting, Ted, who I actually did really like at first, but it turns out that Ted was a wrong 'un. He was a bad 'un. He brought this globe as a gift, like a peace offering to Homo Aqua, and then it turned out it was a bomb. And that he was doing a con, and then he detonates the globe at the bottom of the ocean. And also, Colonel Ibrahim gets killed. Spoilers. There's an assassination attempt on Kate Stewart because Kate is bringing her love life back home with her. Very unprofessional. And Ibrahim gets killed. And it's not just, oh, he gets shot and that's it. Despite this being in the Whoniverse, we see the bullet wound in his chest when Kate Stewart lifts up his shirt to try and take a look at the wound, and there's a lot of blood. My goodness, Ibrahim dies as the part 3 ending cliffhanger, because Kate is the one who's trying to have diplomatic talks with Homo Aqua, whereas you have these other representatives of corporate interests from the water companies who are like, no, we can't fix everything. We're going to actually try and kill them. We're gonna use this thing called severance to try and take them down, but we're not going to tell you what severance is until the last minute. I haven't seen that much blood since Tosh died. Oh goodness, yeah, that was something. Can you imagine, like, if you have like a young viewer of Doctor Who, and we're talking young, like 5 to 7 years old, who maybe likes the Ncuti Gatwa era, and you think the War Between the Land and the Sea, that's not for them. You know, it's maybe when they're a bit older. Imagine trying to explain to that child why Ibrahim is not in the Christmas special. Oh, what happened to that unit soldier who Kate really liked? Oh, he got shot in the fucking chest, Kevin. I didn't particularly care that much. I like Alexander Devrient, who plays him, but I don't particularly think Ibrahim is well defined enough as a character. It felt a little bit like shock value. And then we have episode 4, The Witch of the Waterfell, when essentially Salt and Barclay are fugitives and they go on the run. There's a cum joke, which I was not expecting, and I feel like with episodes 3 and 4, there's this very deliberate attempt to have the politics take a backseat, and you focus more on the Barclay and the Salt romance relationship, and that's the least interesting part about it. It's really frustrating that despite Avatar doing, basically, you think, putting the nail in the coffin of this trope of this outsider falls in, you know, this outsider wants to defend this other out group because he falls in love with the hot one. It kind of diminishes Barclay's. I don't want to say he's not authentic. I don't want to say that Barclay is not sincere in his desire to help Homo Aqua, but when you immediately have him go very quickly in episode 3, go for the love story, it kind of makes you think, would you want to save Homo Aqua? Would you fight as hard to defend them and their people and their rights if you didn't fall in love with one of the hot ones? If Tide had been the ambassador, would Barclay want to fuck them? And would Barclay fight as hard as he does to save Tide if they were also fugitives? It's a little bit, it takes a lot of legitimacy out of the premise, and you can see the story actively pivoting from the interesting politics to the love story. Now, there's some good elements to the love story in concept. I like the idea that if Salt is basically shunned from her community. She essentially has the water version of solitary confinement, where she's just made to swim the oceans, swim the darkness of the ocean depths alone for the rest of her life, which honestly in concept is a really dark way to go. And when we heard the location leaks for The War Between the Land and the Sea, when they're at that bridge and Barclay is shouting off the side of the bridge saying, "You'll never swim alone." Obviously, when we first heard that out of context, it was pretty cringe, and maybe you did still cringe when it happened. And thank you to Martin Chodley for subscribing during the live stream. When we hear it in context, that actually he's trying to reassure that she's not going to suffer that horrible fate that could be bestowed to her by Homo Aqua, it's a little bit better. The line was not amazing. Like, it's better than I thought it was. It's better than the location leaks implied that it was. When it comes to the pivot, we start losing all of the interesting politics. We start losing the interesting backroom deals. There's the brilliant scene in, I think, is it part 2? When you have the French ambassador, the American ambassador, and the guy who works with the water companies in the UK, and they're having that meal around the dinner table, and they don't draw attention to it, but they are eating caviar, and they're having salmon slices on top of crackers. The idea that while they're discussing all this stuff about Homo Aqua, they are literally eating fish food, I thought that was a really cool bit of visual storytelling, but we get significantly less of that over the course of the story, so that when we have to start paying off these ideas in part 5, it hardly ever happens. It just doesn't happen. And also the ending of part 2, where Homo Aqua throw all of the plastic in the ocean and just dump it back onto land, doesn't even make it to part 3. The consequences of that doesn't even make it to part 3. There's a little bit of litter on the side of the bridge at the final scene in part 4, and I think one of the characters, one of the news anchors, says the cleanup operation is still happening. But when you actually are looking on the streets, if you do have these location filming scenes, there's no litter to be found. For the most part, maybe a couple of piles here and there. It doesn't look like all of the tons and tons of plastic is still a problem for them. The idea that the plastic apocalypse, that is the title of part 2, doesn't even have any sort of impact or logistical hurdles for UNIT or anyone else to overcome in part 3. It seems like they just sorted the litter out overnight. It was like a minor inconvenience. Yeah, in the chat, is the Titanic's wreck still in New York? I don't know. The Titanic wreck just swept up really. Yeah, they just got Jeff there with his broom and they figured it out. The plastic inconvenience. Yeah, exactly. It's all gone by part 5. I'd argue it's all gone by part 4, with the exception of a little bit at the bridge. I think that Russell Tovey and Gugu Mbatha Raw, really strong performances, and they do their best with it. And I think the confrontation at the bridge, when Kate is about to open fire on the UK military, is actually a genuinely tense scene. I think that's really effective. And the idea that they do incorporate things like deep fakes to try and turn the public against Salt, yeah, that's a very legit, of course that makes complete sense that that's what they tried to do. And I understand some people have been saying online that the politics is so simplistic. Like, there's these people who, like, they'll do whatever it takes just to kill Homo Aqua, and there's no there's no nuance, there's no shades of grey. And I'd argue, folks, we're talking about companies that will just pollute our waters illegally and profit billions for the courtesy of doing it. Like, we are dealing with genuinely very evil, very compromised people, and there is very little nuance to these situations. So this, the social commentary in The War Between the Land and the Sea does not demand nuance. It just demands calling out the evils that we see it, which makes the end of the war, the 5th episode of the series, the finale, such a baffling approach to take with the story. Firstly, I think that Russell T Davies hates Kate Lethbridge-Stewart. And I like Kate. I've been getting some flack online for apparently hating. I like Kate. I like Gemma Redgrave. I think Russell's the one who hates her. From her turning against Shirley Ann Bingham when influenced by The Giggle in The Giggle, her completely turning on Ruby Sunday in 73 Yards, that glare she gives to the camera across the dinner table. I think that Kate is someone who Russell really openly despises. That's just the vibe I get, folks. I'm just working with what the episode gives me. And the opening of part 5, when she's seeing that therapist and she wants more medication, so she blackmails her therapist into, that's not cool. That's not a good thing. And the ending scene when she's gonna shoot the litterer, or at least threatens the guy with a gun, is meant to be this big girl boss moment, according to Russell. I've had so many people. Her grilling the Prime Minister was good, though. Oh no, I'm gonna strongly disagree. But here's the thing: with people have been saying it's the downfall of Kate's character. Kate's clearly going off the edge, and it's meant to be depicting that. Thank you to Echo Seeker 19 for subscribing during the live stream. The problem is that Russell T Davies disagrees with your reading of that. If you go through the interviews, and I've bookmarked the tweets here, if you go through the tweets and the promotion and the marketing that Russ T Davies has done, the scene with the psychiatrist, that is such a laugh. You're showing sides to her you've never seen before, and she's ferocious. We're meant to be applauding her. These are meant to be girl boss moments. Apparently, the ending cliffhanger, it's a sensational scene and she's great, and you meant the amount of people who were like, oh no, you're meant to be sympathetic towards her, but there's meant to be a downfall. You're not meant to agree with her. Russell T Davies, according to these interviews, according to the stuff that he said in the lead up to the finale, disagrees with you. I just think that the fact that audiences have given the more charitable read is a bit disheartening, that Russell was like, yeah, this is actually girl boss stuff, as opposed to someone very clearly, having a very difficult time, understandably, but leveraging her, her blackmailing her psychiatrist is, it's a similar moral, it's on a similar moral level to dating Ibrahim, even though she's his boss. And firstly, why is she even interested in him if all of the scenes that we see with them together is just her dismissing him every 30 seconds? There's no chemistry between the two, because as the way she's written, Kate is like, we can't be doing this, I'm busy, I'm trying to save. It doesn't cohere. I don't understand if we're actually meant to be invested in this relationship. But for Kate, she's the boss. She's not meant to be dating people below her. We had a whole movement about this. It was called Me Too. It applies to all genders, folks. Just because, what? We're not meant to be, we shouldn't be supporting this dynamic, folks. But apparently, according to Russell, it is meant to be stuff that, we're meant to find her ferocious, and we're meant to find her inspiring and girl bossy, but absolutely not. Let's just break down what actually happens here. So, okay, I apologize if I miss any details, but the chat's here. We're going to figure this out together, folks, okay? So for the end of the war, Salt manages to escape at the end of part 4, and Barclay is basically under house arrest in this hotel, but he's able to be sedated and compromised because there's people on the inside who are able to drug his food, are able to they're basically able to put some substance on his hands or in his body and his DNA and stuff that he's able to take to Salt when they finally end up meeting. And that's how he infects them with Severance, I assume. A lot of people have been asking, how did he get Gills at the end? How did he get Severance into the system? The fact that this is, people don't understand, the fact that so many people are asking this question, I think is a bit of an issue in and of itself. But I think the implication is that the organizations who are working with the Prime Minister but separate from UNIT were able to drug or do something to Barclay so that when they meet up with Salt later on, he's able to infect her, and then she's able to spread it to Aquakind, even though she's meant, I don't know, isn't she under house arrest or something from the rest of Homo Aqua? I don't know, but whatever, it's fine, whatever. It spreads through the water. Where was Petrol? I don't know, maybe Petrol was the fish that got caught, from the hunting grounds. Why does that make him get Gills? I don't know. But maybe Salt could just do that to him, I don't know. Barclay he goes out in the middle of the night thinking that he's being really clever, and basically goes under the water, screams out Salt's name for 8 hours, and then goes back to bed. One of these times it does actually produce salt in the water because the French ambassador is able to lower the system that is blocking Aquakind communication, so that salt just come, and then that's how they get infected, presumably. Kate threatens the Prime Minister, once again in a very girl boss way, but what ends up happening is that Homo Aqua start melting the ice caps. Tide is very angry with them and is like, we're just accelerating the process you did. You've got 5 years to fix everything. You've got 5 years. And rather than humanity buckle up and fix their problems within 5 years, corporate interests prevail and they activate Severance, which ends up killing 90% of all Homo Aqua. And because it was a man-made virus, 9 out of 10 of all of Homo Aqua are killed. Salt is one of the few survivors, and Salt comes back up to surrender. And what happens is that humanity gives them another offer, saying that there's this other stretch of water, 14 kilometers deep, 20 kilometers wide. You can have it. We'll make sure that it's free of pollution, that it's free of noise, and you can live there, and we'll protect you. And Salt is like, we will accept this offer if you call it what it is. It's a hunting ground for us. And then she produces that picture of one of the big fish being hunted. It's essentially a man-made concentration camp. It's a hunting ground where they can hunt Aquakind and do whatever. They can subjugate them. And yeah, there was also Accord. They tried to have a peace thing with Accord. Barclay and Unit try to put the message Accord out, but it's too late. Severance has got to it first. Where's the Doctor in all of this? Figuring it out. I don't know. He's being Billy Piper because he wants to. And the series ends with everyone from the Severance department, the Prime Minister, the corporate interests in America, the corporate interests in France, they end up winning. Thank you to Thomas Ahern for subscribing during the live stream. They get a stern finger wagging. Salt has a warning saying, one day the water will get you. And then we get these dream sequences, these very brief cuts where the American and the French ambassador get killed by water. One of them in the car, one of them in the shower. They have these dream sequences. They're like, oh dear, this bad thing could happen to us one day. And then the French ambassador leaves the hall, which is, totally suspicious, but whatever. Kate knows it was them, but doesn't do anything about it because it's Kate. And then Barclay and Kate go to the water. Barclay meets up with Salt. Barclay grows gills, and then they swim away. Oh, it's very beautiful because, Salt won't swim alone, and they're going to swim together in the water again. And Barclay leaves his family, including his child Kirby, to go be with this fish lady that he's only just met. But worse than that, chat, genuine question, and this isn't a trick question, the episode tells you. Okay, where do Barclay and Salt go at the end of the story? They're swimming together at the end. Where do they go? They're going to the hunting ground. They're going where they're gonna die. Barclay and Salt, they get to swim together, but they're going to the hunting ground where they're gonna die. So our heroes of the story are gonna die. And then Kate, she gives the Prime Minister a stern talking to, but she doesn't take down the water companies in the UK, doesn't get rid of the French corporate interests or the American corporate interests that were behind Severance and killed 90% of Aquakind. Instead, her anger and scorn is served towards an individual on the beach who throws his plastic bottle down when going for a jog, to the extent that she points her gun at him and says, pick it up. And once again, Russell says it's meant to be an outstanding, hilarious girl boss moment. The same thing that went wrong with the Interstellar Song Contest has gone wrong with the ending of The End of the War. It is a morally depraved ending to the story that is completely going against the populist opener of it. Everyone knows that these water companies are doing horrible, shitty stuff in the world, not just the UK. But the story instead lets them go scot-free. Oh, but they're going to be haunted by the idea that one day they'll get their comeuppance. One day the water will get them. But no, you know what? I actually don't think they are going to be haunted by the water, because they're going to be like all of the other sociopathic billionaires in this world. They're going to sleep like fucking babies, and they're going to be absolutely fine, because people like Kate will let them get away with whatever, because it's a lot easier to just point their gun at an individual, a flawed individual who litters on the beach, than it is to actually tackle these power dynamics. It's so fucked. Can you, Malcolm Hulke would be rolling in his fucking grave if something like this was presented to him. The guy was a card-carrying socialist who was actually on an MI5 most wanted list. He was a person of interest from the MI5 because of his political beliefs. And here we have his Sea Devil creations and the inspiration of the stories that he told in the 70s being used now to tell a story where, sorry folks, you can't do anything to beat these systems. You can't do anything to stop the horrible people of the world from polluting the water and committing genocide, but you can point your gun at individuals. It's like Kablam times 1,000. It's worse than Kablam. It's worse than Kablam. And the fact that it has a very similar issue to the Interstellar Song Contest, where the hatred and the ire of the main character, or one of the main characters in this case, with Kate Stewart, is directed to a flawed individual, as opposed to the systems and the power dynamics that actually are the real evil of the universe in the stories that they're telling, is so telling. It would be like, can you imagine, I'm trying to think of big other TV shows from the past couple of years. Think Mr. Bates versus the Post Office, okay? If Russell T Davies and Pete Mateague, but I'm more inclined to think Russell T Davies. If it was Russell T Davies writing Mr. Bates versus the Post Office, that story, I know it's based on a true story, but follow me with the hypothetical. That story would have ended with, oh, it's a bad thing that the post office did to these sub-postmasters, but what are you gonna do? Let's point our gun to the post office customers. Jesus Christ, why would you... I don't understand why you make that the ending coda to your story. I don't get it. This is going to sound so weird, but has Russell T Davies become, secretly super fucking conservative in the past couple of years? I don't get how this happens. You're saying Severance got away with it, but no, I understand the confusion. So the sequences where we see them die, those are dream sequences. They don't happen. People are saying they're flashed forwards, but the actors are reacting to these scenes like they're seeing them. I thought those were flash forwards, but the actors are reacting to them. Okay, maybe Russell and Pete could sit down with me right now and say, Mr. TARDIS, those are flash forwards. Maybe, but the way that they're shot and mixed and the way the actors react to them scream dream sequence. And also, let's not forget that in The Devil's Cord, the 6-month time skip, Russell explained that away by saying it's a Pyramids of Mars reference to explain temporal drift. So the fact that we don't know what's happening in the linear sequence of Doctor Who stories is not even the first time this has happened in this era. And the fact that, okay, one day these people will die. Yeah, okay, great. I think Justice Now would be really good, because it's a lot easier to give these authority figures, including the Prime Minister, who doesn't die, even though he was just as culpable with Severance as well. It's a lot easier for Kate Stewart to have a girl boss speech and give them a finger wagging than it is to actually deal with these power structures. And I understand that the fact that this is a Whoniverse spin-off, it can't fundamentally change the Whoniverse too much. The Doctor, whether it's Ncuti or Billy Piper or the CBeebies Doctor or whatever, can't return to Earth 5 years after this spin-off is resolved, and they've fixed climate change. The ice caps are fine, all of the plastic... They can't do that. I get it. I get that. They have to have the darker ending where these corporate powers do win, where these corporate powers do ultimately work behind Kate's back, and enact severance and the humanity wins the war between the land and the sea. I get that, but I don't think that's the story that Russell and Pete think that they've made. They think they've made a heroic girl boss scene, a heroic girl boss story with Kate Stewart, who points a gun at a civilian because they littered on the beach, but doesn't have even remotely the same level of anger or passion against the people who genocided 90% of Homo Aqua. It's so fucked up. I don't know, it was a flash forward, but I'll disagree. The actors react to them. Unless, like, maybe Homo Aqua have technology where they're able to implant these visions into their heads, and they are reacting to it. If so, that should be explained. How hard is it to just say corpos are evil? But that's the thing. They do in parts 1 and 2. You have, is it in episode 1 or in episode 2, where Barclay gives that speech saying, talking about the water companies polluting, and our children know that it's wrong, and we're still doing it anyway, and we need to stop this. And then that character dies at the end of the story with the romantic love of his life because they go to the hunting grounds that humanity has given them. Like, chat, I'm working with what the episode gives me. And I'm not making any of this up. This is the text of the episode. When you have the Interstellar Song Contest, which is very clearly meant to be a parallel on Israel and Palestine and Israel's participation in the Eurovision Song Contest, and the episode spends a disproportionate amount of time having the Doctor torture the genocide survivor, who's meant to be the allegory for Palestine, but there's not even remotely the same level of ire or hatred or consequence or anything for the corporation doing the genociding in that story. The same things happened here. Aren't they just reacting to the threat and that they will be discovered? Yeah, they're gonna die. Well, yeah, we're all gonna die. I would rather justice happens before that, personally. I would rather that the world's most famous paedophile in Donald Trump actually has some consequences before he inevitably dies of a stroke. Personally, I don't think that's too high a bar. But the whole point of the Interstellar Song Contest without the corporation was bad. Yes, but there's not even... it's degrees. The main character, the Doctor, tortures the genocide survivor, and then nothing is done about the corporation other than we sing a song about it. In this case, the war between the land and the sea, nothing is done to the corporations that are polluting our waters, who are ruining our infrastructure, who kill 90% of Homo Aqua with severance, other than warnings and finger waggings. I can't imagine anyone being inspired by this. You have Barclay's speech saying, we've got to do this for our kids, we need to be good for our kids. Show a kid this, and they'll just think, oh, I guess we can't do anything now. I guess the corporations will win. Or I guess we can give individuals a stern talking to the extent where we'll literally point a gun at them for littering, and he's treated as wrong for it. He's actually not treated... we can't go through this discussion again because I've covered this so thoroughly before. He calls it his rise like a phoenix moment, and Belinda says he's wonderful for it. I'm sorry, it's the text of the episodes. It's the text of the episode. We've been over this so many times. I think that it's unbelievable levels of cope. I'm sorry, it's the text of the episode. I would love it if it was different, but the text is the text. If you want to write fan fiction about it, go for it. And I would adore re-edits or revisions of it. I would genuinely adore it. But the text is the text. And he says that it's his rise like the phoenix. And he's not, and he tortures the guy. He has his holy shit, what have I done moment where he's staring at the glove. And then the what have I done moment doesn't even make it to the next line of dialogue. We'll play the clip if you have to, but the next thing he says to Kid is, oh, you've still put ice in my heart that will never go away. And then he sends the kid away to the corporation that genocided the people. It's the text of the episode, chat. And I don't want to relitigate it, but the text is the text. Now, do you think RTD has fallen off? It's got to be studied. 4 finales in this era, if you include the giggle. 4 historic fumbles. oh my god, the fall off has to be studied. Yeah, Gemma Redgrave is really good. She's really good in the story. I just don't think it's the story that they think they're telling. Yeah, okay, so Furon Guy mentioned in a super chat. Thank you so much for the super chat.
Wonderful chat. All of them.
And there were so many things that came up that were never relevant. Who are the big fish and why are they a third Homo aqua species? Why bring up salt can change gender, etc. Yeah, it was never explained why they why salt changed gender the way they did, or changed their gender presentation. That was never explained, which is a shame because that was actually a quite interesting moment. But it's just never built up on. But yeah, the third Homo aqua species, they were the big fish. They were big fish people. I like the big fish. What happened to them? They died. Sorry, they died. But it's okay. The people that killed them got a very stern talking to. I will say, Russell Tovey was really good in this series, and the scenes where like he's really afraid to go in the submersible, and when he's talking to his wife or his ex-wife at the pub, and he's really, really good. He's really, really good. I think that it's a really strong performance, and it's just deserving of a much better series. They could have cut back on the crying, though. To be fair, he's been through a lot. He's been through an awful lot. Yeah, I thought he was very good. The finale was truly bleak, like Children of Earth. The thing is, I think Children of Earth understood how bleak it was. I don't think Water in the Land of the Sea understands how bleak it is. Like, the ending dancing in the water scene with Barclay and Salt is presented as this really wonderful, heroic, romantic, lovely moment. And the episode doesn't seem aware that 10 minutes ago it confirmed that they were going to die. I just don't think the episode is aware of the implications. I actually don't think they know what they've written, which sounds so patronizing, but I'm working with what they give me, and I don't think they understand how what they've presented. I don't get it. I'm still confused as to the purpose of UNIT now. The purpose of UNIT, at least UNIT under Kate Lethbridge Stewart, is to defend the universe as long as it doesn't involve taking action against power structures. It's all about finger wagging and spending a lot of taxpayers' money, even though taxpayers' money is not going to the hospitals, as we see with Belinda, because they're still run down and understaffed and overbooked. Is it just Doctor Who that he's doing this for? Like, will Tiptoe be like this? It's a Sin was really, really good. But can you imagine if Russell took the approach with It's a Sin, as he did to The War Between the Land and the Sea, and Doctor Who more broadly? It's really bad that all these people are dying of AIDS, but can't do anything about it. Can't combat the power structures. Sorry. We'll get very angry at individual cases of homophobia, but sorry. We'll give Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan a very stern talking to.
All of them.
We're not going to do anything about it. It's horrible, but that's what he's created here. That's what he's done. Ronald Reagan and Thatcher got away with it IRL. Yeah, they did. Because we shouldn't just, give them a stern talking to and hope that justice happens. Justice is not a force. It's not like gravity. It's something that needs to be enforced. It's something that needs to be actively fought for. It'll be great if people like, Netanyahu and Trump and others, actually saw justice rather than hoping that the natural arc of the universe goes towards progress. You got to actively bend it and fight for it. Tony Blair, he's still making millions off of speaking engagements. He hasn't had any consequences. I bet he sleeps like a fucking baby. I'm sure he's had many finger-wagging talks too, like Kate Stewart would give characters in this story, but he sleeps like a fucking baby, I'm sure. The point was that justice didn't happen, bleak ending. I actually don't think that was the intent. I actually think that it was a girl boss, and those people are really bad, and they know they're bad, and, justice will come for them one day. It's depressing. It's depressing TV, but not for the reasons they think it is. Let's be real, all these criticisms of War Between and Interstellar, it's a game and insincere bad faith, all these people should be punished, why don't you focus on digging up who you can punish? No, I get where that's coming from, P. Smith. However, in these particular examples, we're talking about the Doctor and Kate Stewart, people who, within the context of the stories and in the shows that they're in, absolutely have the capacity to punish. They absolutely have the means. They absolutely have the capability to do it. I'm not talking about me. I can't punish the water companies much apart from doing a citizen's arrest. I can't do much of that. I guess I could stop paying my water bill, but then, I'd probably end up getting arrested for doing that, or something bad would happen to me. But the Doctor absolutely has the means. Like, he's an omnipresent, immortal time traveler with limitless technology in his TARDIS. Kate has all of these mechanisms of UNIT and everything around, like, with technologically, with her capabilities in this massive, well-funded organization. Like, they have the means to do it. They absolutely do. Which is why it's frustrating when they don't. Or it's more frustrating as to who they do end up punishing, who they do get angry at. It's, don't look at what they say, look at what they do.